Right, welcome to Rugby.com.au review of the Queensland Reds this year, and everyone was talking about the Reds probably in the first couple of rounds. It was all about Richard Graham, but their season on a whole, Stephen Hoiles, a pass or a fail when you're looking towards the future?
Oh, you have to be realistic here and give it a fail, unfortunately. It wasn't helped by their off-field issues, as you said. Round 2 or 3, Richard Graham was sacked and Nick Stiles and Matt O'Connor took over as co-coaches, and they improved from a performance point of view, but they didn't get the results throughout the season. Only won 2 or 3 games all year, so disappointing.
Yeah, it was disappointing, but what was some good signs for the Reds? A couple of young players coming through. Andrew Reddy was one there in the front row. McIntyre at fly half. A pass mark for him. I thought he did okay for the Reds this year in challenging times.
Yeah, he did okay, and I think he'll benefit a lot if someone like Quade Cooper were to come back. You see Dave Hortz at the Waratahs, he's surrounded by Kurtley Beale, Bernard Foley, Rob Horn, so he gets to progress not in the spotlight as McIntyre had to do this year at the Reds. So he, for a young guy, I think he did pretty well at the start of the season. He had a couple of injuries towards the end, but he'll improve with the likes of Samu Karevi, Frisbee getting a bit more experience.
Yeah, and they were probably their 2 key players that performed well for them and got a reward with Michael Cheika picking them for the June Test series. Nick Frisbee's game has really sort of developed, and from a player that's played in a club rugby grand final in 2013, he's just sort of stepped it up each time. And Samu just seems to be, he could be the answer for the Reds in that attacking flair, especially in the midfield.
Yeah, when you talk about Nick Frisbee, and you wonder, he spent so many years behind Will Genner, and this year he finally got his opportunity. And he did really well, got himself rewarded with a bit of Wallaby time as well. And Karevi, well, when he plays the game that suits him, when he runs hard and tackles hard, and I think the camp that he had with Michael Cheika early in the year was the turning point for him, because he went a couple of weeks there where he was a few too many offloads and a bit of loose carries, but something happened in that camp at Cockatoo Island where he turned around his season for the Reds, and along with Gill, he was the best for the Reds this year.
But then you talk about the coaching staff. Nick Stiles now the head coach for next year, and you forget about Brad Thorne also in the mix, Sam Cordingley, a former Wallaby there or thereabouts. This coaching roster is starting to look pretty good for the Reds for the future.
Yeah, it's still important who he names as his attack coach and his defence coach. Brad Thorne, we know what he'll do. He's one of the few players in world rugby that has such a strong aura. But Nick Stiles is an excellent set-piece coach. I just hope his role as head coach doesn't take away from their strong line-out and scrum they've had for the last couple of years. So it's a complete different role being a head coach to an assistant coach. Got to be mindful that Nick Stiles can still coach what he does really well.
Looking ahead for next year, losing a couple of players, of course. Liam Gill going to Toulon, and a couple of other back rowers there, Curtis Browning one. Where do you see the Reds' future and how's it looking? I know there's one player in particular we're all looking forward to seeing playing in the Super Rugby next year, that being George Smith. So would you say the players leaving replaced with good enough talent to come in 2017?
Look, I thought it was going to be impossible to replace Liam Gill, but George Smith is probably the only person in the world that I think he's probably more attacking as a number 7. So I'd like to see Liam Gill back at Queensland. I still think he's got unfinished business, not only with Queensland but with the Wallabies too. He's too good a player to be playing overseas this stage of his career. Leroy Houston comes back. We heard a lot about him, but we haven't seen much yet. So I'd like to see Leroy come into full form. And Steve Moore, you've played a lot of footy with and against Steve Moore, and he'll help Andrew Reddy. Probably be a perfect transition over the next 2 years for Steve to move his way out of Super Rugby and Andrew Reddy to really springboard his career further.
Yeah, we forget about Stephen Moore, one of the greatest hookers of all time, joining the Queensland Reds. So good times ahead for Queensland, but not so great for 2016.